Hi, DZ Movies here. Today I'm going to explain an action sci-fi film called Fortress. Incoming spoilers. Watch out and take care. The film begins with a scene in which some girl, Karen, together with a man, Captain, fearfully continues her journey in a car that is stopped by the authorities at a border for search and verification. It seems that the two are planning something. They have a small discussion just before they are stopped by the soldiers, Karen telling the captain that she would feel safer if she did this alone. He still does not agree with Karen's proposal. However, their discussion is quickly interrupted by the authorities, who ask the two to get out of the car, to scan and check them. It seems that the two were traveling to Vancouver, and it seemed that everything was going according to plan, whatever they were hiding and hoping to cross the border undetected. It's the turn of the two to be checked. Karen first approaches the device, although visibly reluctant. However, the two manage to get to the car, but when they almost escape, an agent goes to the captain and stops him for "You give a piece of luggage that he seems to have forgotten." At which point the soldier sees something close to Karen's neck on her blouse. The agent undresses her and notices the bulletproof vest, at which point Karen and the captain start attacking the police and run away on foot, on the bridge, being chased by them and by the hunting dogs. However, it seems that they can't both escape. The captain realizes this and tells Karen to run away. He stays behind to distract the dogs, being arrested, allowing Karen to take a more considerable lead and have no chance to escape. The captain is captured and transported with several detainees to a kind of prison, described as a huge place by one of the other detainees, who claims to have written an article about such a place, at which point a voice is heard in the speakers of the truck with which they were transported, addressing them as prisoners, telling them that they had entered the fortress, as the private maximum security prison was called. Apparently, the prison was located somewhere in the middle of the desert, being unable to escape for anyone. Meanwhile, the captain says that he was brought here because his wife became pregnant for the second time, which was apparently a crime, for which he received 31 years in prison. While the detainees enter the territory of this prison for the first time, they are undressed and led by the guards, while on a monitor Poe, who was the director of the prison, explains to them what the rules are and how it works in the facility run by this. In turn, the detainees, including the captain, are connected to some machines, which forcefully introduces a label in their body through which the system will automatically control their behavior, explaining the rules. If they plan to escape or to commit any other type of crime, they will cross two lines, one yellow and one red. If they cross the yellow line, the label will give them physical pain, but if they cross the red line, they are dead. After all the new detainees, including the captain's tags, were introduced, one of them loses his temper, starts screaming that he wants to leave here, accusing him of an illness, moving uncontrollably and visibly scared. He crosses the yellow line, instantly suffering from physical pain in front of the other detainees. Under the eyes of the others, these, because of the pain, crawls, but in the opposite direction, because not long after it passes without realizing the red line, the device swallowed by him exploding, leading to his death. Seeing what happened, the captain's anxiety and discomfort increase when the elevator descends in this penitentiary of maximum underground security of 33 levels of depth. Prisoners Brennick and Gomez are asked to descend before the others to a different level. Visibly confused, but still helpless, they have no choice but to obey orders. They are led by a robot to one of the cells, where there were already 3 more detainees. Visibly outraged, the others reproach the robot that they are already crowded and do not want new cellmates, but after the robot considers that they have a hostile attitude, that they will be rewarded with pain as when they break the yellow line. But in order to avoid such an inconvenience, the detainees choose to change their opinion about the 2 newcomers. After the 2 enter the cell, the same detainee who had dissatisfaction with living with the 2, explains how things are here in an authoritarian manner, telling them that the 2 will have to pay rent because they live here, with some other information. The captain, by his real name John Brennick, is not intimidated by him. He continues his way to another roommate he meets, who replies that he can call him D-Day or whatever he wants, being visibly scared to talk too much. After the 2 lay down their sleeping bags on the floor, the lights go off and all the prisoners get ready for bed, at which point a 3rd detainee from the cell where they had come from, who had not said a word until now, told them not to dream. Obviously, they can't control whether to dream or not, and during his sleep the director of the prison sees on several monitors in his office everything that the detainees dream of, at which moment he observes John's dreams. He had an erotic dream with his wife, and although the director was also a man and understood this pleasure, he ordered the robot to cause pain to John because he violated the rules. He wakes up in terrible pain for a few moments, and his screams wake up the rest of his cellmates. The next day our prisoners are in favor of working in prison, when John asks D-Day what is the matter with a dubious detainee, who seems to be detached from reality. He tells her how his brain was washed. Now he is nothing more than a ghost, because he tried to escape. No one escaped from that place. Discussion interrupted by Gomez's cries for help that was abused by one of the detainees while the other was guarding so that no one would interrupt them. Only that John is not of the same opinion. He hitting the two involving is in this conflict to help the one with whom he was brought here. The fight stopped by the robot that causes them pain because they broke the rules. Maddox, Brennick and Gomez are then locked up in solitary confinement and cannot be released until the perpetrator is revealed as they were told. As Gomez could no longer resist, he had to confess who started the incident. He clearly did not want to leave the person who saved him, but as the alternative was to say the name of the aggressor he was afraid of, he hesitated in the meantime to at the end of their suffering. John confesses that he has started the fight, which brings him to the director's office. Arriving in the director's office, after much discussion, the director addresses him as John Brennick, the most decorated captain in the history of Black Berets, but when John visibly outraged, he replies to the director that this is not his business. He shows him a video from the area of some women's prison, where she was a prisoner and his wife, the director telling her that they caught her before she left that bridge. The director explains again the stupid laws that everyone must follow to John. A single woman child, abortion forbidden. These facts brought the two to prison, immediately transmitting abdominal pain to both John and his wife right under his eyes. John returns to the detainees' wing and it doesn't take long for him to ask Abraham how he can get to the women's wing, where his wife was a prisoner. Abraham in the first phase refuses to tell him, but in the end, he indicates to him what he wanted to know to get rid of him. Meanwhile, chaos in the detainees' wing, when doctors try to operate on Karen's cellmate, who is pregnant and will give birth. She opposes and tries to run away to try to save her child but is inevitably caught. After this chaotic scene we turn our attention to the detainees' wing, where John is assaulted by Maddox, who tries to teach him a lesson. The fight is fierce, and apparently although the prison director sees what is happening, he does not intervene to stop them this time. Moments when the girls a few floors above watch the fight between the two, including his wife, Karen. The two were fighting on a small retractable suspension bridge through which the detainees were brought in that wing of the elevator, a bridge on which the director ordered to be withdrawn, so that the two could fall at any time from that height, culminating in their death. However, the fight continues, until John kidnaps Maddox, who is still holding only one hand on the platform, close to death now, when the director announces that he has sentenced Maddox to death, and he can be rehabilitated and orders John to execute it. John refuses, helps Maddox get back on the bridge, but now they were both in trouble. The bridge is still receding, and the space is getting smaller, but the director is obviously unhappy with John's decision, sends one of the robots and kills Maddox. John's effort to save him became useless. But even though John is spared and is not killed along with Maddox, he is sent to solitary confinement again. John seems to be kept for 3 days in a device that plays with his mind. The director tells Karen that no one lasted more than 4 days in that place and that he can stop torturing his husband if she chooses to live with the director during his stay in prison, who confessed that he felt the need for company. Karen makes this sacrifice, and John returns to his cell, the others noticing that something is different about him. When Abraham says that his mind is no more, he is dead, a ghost, but Gomez does not want to believe that. Karen wakes up in the middle of the night and notices that the director of the prison was connected to some kind of machine, accusing him of not being human, of being a monster, a weirdo. He confirmed that those he works for have turned him into a better man, explaining how he feeds once a month, and if his race is the majority, humanity will no longer face the problem of hunger. Karen realizes that all the babies, whom the leaders kidnap from mothers like her, are transformed into such individuals, who do not sleep, do not eat, cannot love. While Abraham takes care of John, trying to refresh his memory, he brings up Karen and the fact that their baby is growing in her womb more and more every day. Karen finds a solution to intoxicate the director with some champagne, and then rushes to his advanced computer to monitor and torture the detainees. She finally finds her husband sleeping in his cell. She scans his dreams and tries to help him get back to reality, while the director struggles to recover and starts shouting at Karen. She manages to finish her attempt to bring John back in time and returns to Director Poe, in time not to be caught. The next day, it seems that John is waking up to reality, proof that Karen's plan had worked, to the surprise of his cellmates who tell him it has been like this for 4 months. Quickly put on the subject with the condition of his wife and the sacrifice she made so that he would not be killed. John intends to escape and puts Abraham, who had access to Director Poe's apartment, to talk to Karen instead, about it. Meanwhile, John, who after Maddox's death had found near his body the device, they all implanted inside them that causes them pain or death, a device that he gives to D-Day to study. Karen asks Abraham to bring John and the others a holographic lens that they can use, but she will have to return it quickly so that it is not noticed. Abraham risks his own life but brings the lens to his cellmates. D-Day, using the lens attached to his glasses positioned next to the lasers that served as bars so that the detainees do not leave the cell, projects a hologram through which John finds in the projected map a possible escape plan. The laser heats up the glasses, and D-Day slips them out of the cell, slightly damaging the holographic lens. John injures his arm only to retrieve the glasses before any robot sees them. The next day Abraham takes the lens to its place, but when Poe wants to show Karen something he notices that the lens is defective, and in order not to accuse her, Abraham confesses that he wiped it off with dust and that probably doesn't work anymore. Poe unhappy, he ordered Karen to divorce John to marry him. Poe promises that the child will be safe, raise him like his own, not transformed, and John will be released if Karen agrees. He waits for Karen's answer until tomorrow evening. Meanwhile Abraham informs John of what he has heard, at which point he decides that in the morning they will escape. They have no choice. D-Day realizes that the devices are actually magnetic detonators, using the laws of magnetism between two magnets to remove the rest of the detonators from inside their bodies, at which point they all agree that they will escape with John. In the meantime, the director was preparing the papers for John's release if Karen chose to marry him but was interrupted by Zed's artificial intelligence assisting him in monitoring the prisoners. Zed informs Poe that he is suspended and will be replaced as prison director, showing him images of Karen stealing the holographic lens from her apartment. All this time John and the rest had time to take the detonators out of them and strategically put them on a pipe through which they would escape. After the pipe was blown up by the detonators, their plan was to start a directed fight to attract the attention of Zed's artificial intelligence, which blows them up for disobeying orders. The plan had succeeded to this point. The four are now in the pipeline, at which point the director asks Zed to let him take over the situation, otherwise they will escape and he will be guilty. He sends pain to the other detainees who still have the detonators in order not to follow them in the pipeline, and for the five, send steam in the pipeline and robots to kill them. All the while, Abraham tries to get Karen out of Poe's apartment, both caught before he leaves, when Poe orders that pain be applied to Abraham, and he begins to laugh, showing the detonator in his hands. Poe tries to suffocate Abraham. Karen stabs Poe in the back, but he seems to feel nothing, while John and the others fight the clones in the tunnel sent to stop them. After shooting down the first clone that had followed him in the tunnel, John seizes a weapon and decides to get out of the tunnel by attacking the other clones, on his way to freedom. D-Day is about to be killed but John appears and saves him at the last moment. A second batch of armed clones follow in their footsteps, quickly killed by John, who along with Gomez and D-Day climbs on the robot watching them controlled by the artificial Zed interface, which climbs like an elevator to Director Poe's apartment. When they get to the apartment, they find Abraham dead, accusing Poe of this, and then asking about his wife. Poe shows him that his wife was taken to surgery, and if he dies, she will die. But it seems that Zed is of a different opinion, as he has clear orders in case of hostage-taking as in the case of the director. He cannot intervene. For the sake of prison, Zed kills the director. Their last attempt is to take D-Day to the keyboard of the computer that controls Zed so he can try to infect him. After he finishes, he is shot from behind by clones, which are killed in turn by John. With his last powers, D-Day manages to virus the system, allowing John to go to his wife. John arrives at this and saves her, during which time the faulty system allows the detainees to escape. They get into a vehicle where Gomez was waiting for them, with the help of which the three manage to leave the penitentiary. Along the way, Karen's contractions become more frequent. They cross the border and stop at an abandoned barn where she was preparing to give birth. It seemed that everything ended well in the end, but the car they had left with somehow comes to life, scanning Gomez who was walking outside the barn. It only starts with the intention of killing him. The car tramples him who cried desperately for John. While Karen is left alone to give birth, John struggles with the vehicle. After he manages to damage it in flames, he goes to the barn where he explodes under the helpless eyes of John. He believed that his wife and child had exploded, and later found them both safe hidden behind rusty scrap metal. The film ends with smiles on the faces of the three survivors. Subscribe to this channel if you want more videos like this. Thank you for watching and don't forget to turn on notification to help this channel.